My sister demanded I co-sign her mortgage or skip Christmas. I sent her $1, but her furious response accidentally revealed my parents had been funneling my medical donations into her down payment. So, I prepared a forensic audit they never saw coming. Before we continue today's story, we have an urgent announcement to make. Due to technical issues, we are pivoting towards another channel. Please subscribe to our new channel, Kin and Karma. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. The notification light on my phone blinked a soft, rhythmic blue, cutting through the gloom of my office. It was 8:45 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the only light in the room came from the dual monitors humming in front of me and the city skyline of Chicago specifically framed by my window. I wasn't just working late. I was hiding. I was hiding from the festive season that seemed to be assaulting me from every storefront and commercial, and hiding from the gnawing emptiness that tended to settle in my chest around mid-December. My job as a forensic accountant meant I spent my life looking for lies. I traced hidden assets in divorce cases, hunted down embezzled funds for corporations, and generally made a living out of the fact that people are greedy and deceitful. I was good at it. I could look at a spreadsheet of 10,000 transactions and spot the one that didn't belong simply by the rhythm of the numbers. I picked up the phone, expecting an email from a client. Instead, it was a text message from my sister, Vanessa. The preview on the lock screen was long, aggressive, and entirely characteristic of our relationship over the last decade. Vanessa, Mom says you're still checking your schedule for Christmas. Look, Claire, let's be real. Don't bother coming unless you're finally useful. Ryan and I are closing on the house, and we need the cosign. If you aren't bringing that signature, don't bring yourself. I stared at the screen, the blue light reflecting in my glasses. My stomach didn't drop, it tightened. It was a familiar sensation, like a fist clenching around my gut. Useful. That was the word that echoed in the silent office. Not wanted. Not loved. Useful. I set the phone down, face up, and took a slow breath, trying to regulate my heart rate. I was 34 years old, successful, independent, and sitting in an office that cost more to rent per month than my parents' mortgage payment back in Ohio. And yet, one text message from my 29-year-old sister could reduce me to feeling like the awkward, unappreciated teenager I used to be. Before I could even decide whether to reply or simply delete the thread, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. Dad flashed across the screen. My father, Joseph, he never called. Not unless someone was dying or someone needed money. Usually, it was both. I swiped to answer, my voice automatic and professional, a shield I wore to protect myself. Hello, Dad. Claire, his voice was breathless, a performance of frailty I had heard 1,000 times. Did you get Vanessa's text? She's very stressed, honey. You know how she gets. I got it, I said, leaning back in my ergonomic chair and staring at the ceiling. She told me not to come for Christmas unless I co-sign a mortgage for a $500,000 home I've never seen. It's not just a home, Claire, my mother, Serenity, chimed in. She was on speakerphone, hovering in the background like a chaotic ghost. It's her future. Ryan is a good man, but his credit, well, the banks are so rigid these days. They don't understand potential. Banks understand math, Mom, I said, rubbing my temples. If they won't lend to them, it's because they can't afford it, and I am not putting my credit on the line for Vanessa. She has no income. She's an influencer with 4,000 followers. She is building a brand. Serenity snapped, her frailty vanishing instantly into defensiveness. And you have so much, Claire. You're sitting there in the city with your fancy job, no husband, no kids. What are you saving it for? Your sister needs stability. I send you $2,000 a month, I said, my voice trembling slightly despite my best efforts to keep it steady. I pay for Dad's heart medication. I paid for the roof repair last spring. I am not co-signing a mortgage. Then don't bother coming, Joseph said. The breathless act was gone. His voice was cold, hard, and final. If you can't help your family when we are begging you, when your sister is finally trying to settle down, then you aren't part of this family. You're just a stranger we know. The line went dead. I sat there in the silence, the hum of the computers suddenly deafening. The rejection wasn't new, but the ultimatum felt different this time. It wasn't just a request for cash, it was a demand for my financial identity. They wanted me to tether myself legally to Vanessa, a woman who had once stolen my identity to open a credit card when she was 19. I looked at the family photo on my desk, a relic from 10 years ago. It was the last time I remembered smiling comfortably around them. Now, looking at their faces, I didn't see family. I saw liabilities. The betrayal of that phone call, the ease with which they discarded me the moment I said no, hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just that they wanted my money. It was that they clearly despised me for having it, while simultaneously feeling entitled to it. The betrayal felt worse than a diagnosis. It was a malignancy I had let grow for too long. For the next hour, I didn't work. I couldn't. I paced the length of my office, my heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. The view of Chicago, usually a source of pride, proof that I had escaped the suffocating atmosphere of my childhood home, now felt like a cold, glass cage. I was physically shaking. It was a visceral reaction to the conditioning of my youth. Good daughters help. Good daughters give. If you aren't giving, you are bad. That was the mantra Joseph and Serenity had drilled into me since I started babysitting at age 12. I walked to the kitchenette and poured a glass of water, my hand trembling so badly I spilled a few drops on the counter. I wiped them up aggressively with a paper towel. Useful, I whispered to the empty room. I thought about the last 5 years. I thought about the medical emergencies. Dad's heart palpitations that required expensive specialists who didn't take insurance. Mom's sudden, vague autoimmune flare-ups that needed holistic treatments costing hundreds of dollars a session. I had paid for it all. I wired the money without question, terrified of losing them, terrified that if I said no, the stress would kill them. I pulled up my personal banking app. The transfer history was a long, red list of outgoing funds. Mom and Dad medical, Mom and Dad house repair, Mom and Dad emergency. It totaled nearly $60,000 in 3 years. I looked back at Vanessa's text. Don't bother coming unless you're finally useful. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud explosion. It was the quiet, terrifying sound of a cable fraying until it severed completely. You want useful. I muttered, opening my Venmo app. I'll be useful. I found Vanessa's profile. Her picture was a heavily filtered selfie, her lips pursed, posing in a bikini on a beach I had paid for indirectly when Mom claimed she needed climate therapy last winter. I typed in the amount, $1. In the memo line, I wrote for the house. Don't spend it all in one place. Best of luck with the bank. Claire, I hit send. The satisfaction was petty, immature, and absolutely delicious. I knew it would ignite a war, but I didn't care. I was done being the ATM. I was done being the safety net for people who would push me off a ledge if it meant softening their own landing. I sat back down at my desk, expecting a text barrage. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. I picked it up, putting it on speaker so I could keep my hands free. I started organizing the files on my desk, needing to feel productive, needing to feel in control. Hello, Vanessa, I said calmly. Are you insane? She wasn't just yelling, she was screeching. The sound distorted through the speaker. You sent me $1. Is this a joke to you? Ryan and I are trying to build a life and you're mocking us. I'm not mocking you, I said, aligning a stack of papers. I'm declining your offer. I'm not co-signing. The dollar is a token of my goodwill. It's more than you've ever given me. Goodwill? She laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. You sit in that ivory tower acting like you're better than us just because you're a boring, soulless accountant. You have no idea what real life is like. We have bills, Claire. We all have bills, Vanessa. I just pay mine. Oh, you think you're so perfect, she spat. You think because you threw money at Dad's sickness that you're a saint. You think that buys you the right to humiliate me. I threw money at Dad's sickness because he is sick, Vanessa. Because he needed heart medication. There was a pause on the other end. A strange, heavy silence that lasted 2 seconds too long. Yeah, she said, her voice dropping an octave, losing the screech and gaining a terrifying smugness. Right, his heart medication. God, you are so pathetic. You really believe everything they tell you, don't you? It's almost sad. My hand froze over the mouse. What does that mean? I asked. My voice was low, dangerous. It means, Vanessa sneered, that you've been paying for my life for years, you idiot. You think Dad needed $6,000 for a specialist last July. We went to Cabo. Ryan and we stayed in a suite. I felt the blood drain from my face. The room seemed to tilt. You're lying, I whispered. I'm not lying, she said, emboldened by my shock. Mom and Dad give it to me. They know I need it more. You have plenty. You're hoarding it. Why should you have a retirement fund when I don't even have a house? It's family money, Claire. It belongs to whoever needs it. And frankly, we've been banking your donations for my down payment for 6 months. We just need your signature to close the gap because on paper, Ryan's income is variable. She laughed again. So thanks for the vacation, sis, and thanks for the down payment. Now stop being a bitch and sign the papers, or you'll never see Mom and Dad again. I sat there frozen. They hadn't just used me, they had laundered me. They had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who I was. They thought I was just Claire, the pushover daughter. They forgot I was Claire, the senior forensic accountant who could trace a single dirty dollar through a shell company in the Cayman Islands. Claire. Vanessa prompted, sounding bored. Are you there? Did you hang up? I'm here, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, robotic, devoid of emotion. My brain was no longer processing family drama, it was processing a crime scene. Good, she said. So, are you going to send the paperwork? I need to think about it, I lied. The plan was already forming. It was intricate, cold, and devastating. Fine, you have 24 hours, don't ruin Christmas. She hung up. I stared at the phone. The shock was evaporating, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. They had confessed, but a confession on a phone call wasn't proof. I needed the paper trail, and I knew exactly how to get it. The next morning, I didn't go into the office. I set up a command center on my dining room table. To understand the magnitude of what Vanessa had admitted, you have to understand the history. For years, I had operated under the assumption that my parents were victims of a cruel American healthcare system. I drove a 6-year-old Honda Civic not because I couldn't afford a Mercedes, but because every time I looked at a luxury car, I saw the cost of my father's prescriptions. I had skipped vacations. I lived in a smaller apartment than my peers. I cooked at home. I did this because I loved them. I did this because I remembered the dad who taught me to ride a bike and the mom who made soup when I had the flu. But those people were gone. They had been replaced by the enablers. Joseph and Serenity had always favored Vanessa. She was the sunshine child, bubbly, pretty, not particularly bright, but charming. I was the serious one, the one who did homework. The one who worried. When Vanessa failed out of college, it was the professor's fault. When she got fired from her retail job, it was the manager's jealousy. Joseph and Serenity cushioned every fall, usually with money they didn't have. When I left for college, I became the funding source for that cushion. And now there was Ryan. I had met Ryan twice. He was 30, slick-haired, and spoke entirely in buzzwords. He called himself an entrepreneur, which seemed to involve reselling sneakers and trying to launch a podcast about cryptocurrency. He was the kind of man who wore a Rolex, likely fake, while his car payment was 3 months overdue. Vanessa had found her match. They were two parasites looking for a host. I sat at my table, 3 laptops open. I needed access. If I was going to prove the fraud, I needed to see my parents' bank accounts. Legally, I couldn't just hack them. That would end my career. I had to be invited in. I picked up the phone and dialed my mother. Hello. Serenity answered on the first ring. She sounded tight, anxious. Claire. Hi, Mom, I said, forcing a tone of defeat into my voice. I've been thinking all night. Oh, thank God, she exhaled. I told your father you would come around. You're a good girl, Claire. Deep down, you always do the right thing. The praise made my skin crawl. I want to help, I said, but I can't just sign blindly. I'm a forensic accountant, Mom. If I sign a mortgage document that has false information on it, I lose my license. I go to jail. You don't want that, do you?" "No, of course not." Panic spiked in her voice. "So, here's the deal," I said, typing rapidly on my keyboard as I spoke. "I will consider co-signing, but I need to review Vanessa and Ryan's financials to make sure they can actually make the monthly payments. And I need to see your accounts too, since you said you're helping with the down payment. I need to structure this so the bank sees it as a gift from me, legally." It was gibberish. Banks don't care about half of what I just said in the way I framed it. But Serenity didn't know that. Serenity only heard, "I will consider co-signing." "Oh, Claire, that's wonderful. Yes, whatever you need. We just want this to work." "Great," I said. "I'm going to email you a link to a secure portal. It's what I use for clients. Just log in with your bank credentials so the software can verify the assets. Tell Vanessa to do the same." "I'll tell her right now," Serenity promised. "She'll be so happy. We can all be a family again for Christmas." "Yes," I said, my finger hovering over the send button for the secure data request. "We can all be together. I'll even come home. I'll bring the paperwork with me." "You're saving us, Claire," she wept. "You really are." "I know, Mom," I said flatly. "I'm always saving you." I hung up and sent the link. It was a trap. A beautiful, legal, authorized trap. By logging into the portal, they were granting me read-only access to download their entire transaction history for verification purposes. They were voluntarily handing me the evidence of their crimes. 20 minutes later, the notifications pinged on my screen. Data received, Joseph and Serenity joint checking. Data received, Vanessa Miller personal checking. Data received, Ryan G. Business LLC. I cracked my knuckles and opened the first file. I started with the most recent transfer. 3 days ago, I had sent $1,500 for Dad's cholesterol meds. I traced the transaction ID. It hit my parents' account on Tuesday at 9:00 a.m. At 9:15 a.m., $1,500 was transferred via Zelle to Vanessa Miller. At 10:30 a.m., a debit charge appeared on Vanessa's account, Gucci Store Columbus, OH, $1,450. I stared at the screen. My father didn't get cholesterol meds. My sister got a purse. I scrolled back. Month after month. Year after year. The $5,000 for the emergency roof repair. Transferred to Ryan. Ryan's account showed a $5,000 payment to Carnival Cruise Lines 2 days later. The $800 for Mom's dental surgery. A charge at a luxury spa in Cincinnati. The rage that had been burning slow and hot suddenly turned into ice. This wasn't just taking advantage. This was systematic theft. They had invented illnesses. They had played on my fear of them dying to fund their luxury lifestyle. I exported everything. I created pivot tables. I color-coded the flow of funds. I built a visual map of where every single cent of my hard-earned money had gone for the last 5 years. The total wasn't $60,000. Including the loans I had given Vanessa directly over the years, the total misappropriation was close to $85,000. I looked at the calendar. Christmas was in 4 days. They wanted me to come home. Fine, I would come home. They wanted me to bring paperwork. Oh, I would bring paperwork. I wasn't going to co-sign a mortgage. I was going to foreclose on their entire reality. The realization wasn't a sudden burst. It was a slow, sickening crystallization. $85,000. My mind didn't process the number as currency. It processed it as time. That money was my overtime. It was the nights I spent in hotels eating room service alone while my colleagues went out for drinks. It was the vacations I didn't take. It was the security I had denied myself to buy them phantom health. For the next 3 days, my apartment transformed into a war room. I called in sick to work, the first time in 7 years. "Claire." My boss, David, had asked, sounding concerned, "Is everything all right?" "Family emergency," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I need to handle some estate planning issues." Technically, it wasn't a lie. I was planning the funeral of my relationship with my entire family. I needed more than just bank statements. Bank statements showed where the money went, but they didn't prove intent. To nail them, really nail them, in a way that would withstand any gaslighting or misunderstanding, I needed the communications. I remembered the old family computer. It was a dusty Dell tower sitting in my parents' den, the one they always called me to fix because it was slow. I had set up remote access on it 3 years ago to help Dad with his email. I logged in. The connection was slow, the screen refreshing in jagged blocks, but it worked. I navigated to my mother's email account. She never logged out. I searched for Vanessa. Hundreds of emails appeared. Subject, RE, transfer for the dress. Date, Nov 12 body. Hi honey, just sent the $400 from Claire. Make sure you delete the text where you asked for it just in case she visits. Love, Mom. My stomach lurched. Subject, RE, Ryan's car payment date, Aug 4 body. Tell Ryan not to worry. I told Claire Dad needs a new CPAP machine. She'll send the money by Friday. Just hold off on the late fee until then. I screenshotted everything. Every email, every admission of guilt, every casual plan to deceive me. Then I searched for mortgage. Subject, loan approval conditional date. Dec 10 from First National Bank body. Dear Vanessa and Ryan, unfortunately, due to the high debt-to-income ratio and lack of verifiable steady income, we cannot approve the loan without a cosigner with a credit score above 780 and substantial assets. Attached to the email was a loan application. I opened it. Under Assets, Vanessa had listed a savings account with $25,000. I cross-referenced my bank analysis. That $25,000 was almost entirely composed of transfers from my parents, transfers that originated from me. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Under Liabilities, Ryan had listed a pending lawsuit settlement payout of $15,000. Curious, I ran a background check on Ryan using my professional database. Ryan G. Civil court records. Defendant in 3 active lawsuits for non-payment of vendors. Defendant in 1 active lawsuit for breach of contract crypto investment scheme. He wasn't just broke, he was a fraud, and he was trying to use my credit to buy a house he would inevitably lose when these lawsuits hit. If I co-signed, the bank would come after me the moment he defaulted. I wasn't just saving my money. I was dodging a financial nuclear bomb. I compiled a dossier, a literal physical binder. Tab 1, the lies, the medical scams. Tab 2, the theft, the funneling to Vanessa. Tab 3, the risk, Ryan's fraud. Tab 4, the ultimatum, the emails proving malice. I printed 2 copies, one for me, one for them. Then I went shopping. I bought a bottle of expensive champagne. I bought a nice dress, something sharp, professional, almost armor-like, and I bought a card. Inside the card, I wrote, "To the family who taught me the value of $1. I packed my bag. I was going home for Christmas. I arrived at my parents' house at 4:00 p.m. on Christmas Eve. The driveway was full. Ryan's leased BMW took up 2 spots. My parents' aging sedan was parked crookedly on the lawn. I parked on the street. When I walked in, the house smelled of cinnamon and roasting meat. It was a smell that used to mean safety. Now it smelled like a trap. Claire. My mother shrieked from the kitchen. She came rushing out, wiping her hands on an apron. She looked healthy, glowing, even. For a woman with debilitating autoimmune issues, she moved with remarkable agility. "Mom," I said, letting her hug me. Her embrace felt thin, brittle. "You made it, and you look tired, honey. Are you working too hard?" She pulled back, scanning my face, looking for weakness. "Just busy," I said, my voice tight. "Where's everyone else?" In the living room, Vanessa is so excited. She's got the papers all ready on the coffee table. Of course she did. I walked into the living room. Vanessa was lounging on the sofa, scrolling on her phone. Ryan was standing by the fireplace, holding a glass of scotch that I recognized as a bottle I had bought Dad 3 years ago for his 60th birthday. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," Vanessa drawled, not looking up. "Did you bring the pen, or just the attitude?" "Hello, Vanessa," I said. "Ryan." Ryan turned, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Claire, good to see you. We really appreciate you doing this. Big step for us." Big step, I agreed. I set my bag down. Where's Dad? In the garage, Mom called out, getting the extra chairs. I sat in the armchair opposite the sofa. The coffee table was indeed set. A thick stack of mortgage documents sat in the center, a pen resting invitingly on top. So, Vanessa said, finally locking her phone and tossing it onto a cushion. Let's get this over with. We have a dinner reservation at 7:00 to celebrate. Celebrate what? I asked, feigning innocence. The house, obviously, she rolled her eyes. Once you sign, the realtor said we can get the keys on the 28th. Right, I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out the binder. It was thick, heavy, black. I placed it on the table next to the mortgage papers. What's that? Ryan asked, eyeing it warily. Due diligence, I said. Before I sign a 30-year commitment, I had to look at the numbers. You know, professional habit. Vanessa scoffed. Oh my God, Claire, it's a standard loan. Just sign the damn paper. I can't, I said clearly. The room went silent. My mother froze in the doorway, a tray of appetizers in her hands. Excuse me. Vanessa's voice dropped. I can't sign this, I repeated, tapping the mortgage stack. Because based on my analysis of your finances, you're insolvent. Insolvent? Ryan laughed nervously. That's a big word. We have savings. We have the down payment. You mean my money? I asked. Ryan blinked. What? The down payment? I said, opening the binder to tab 2. I pointed to a chart. This bar graph shows the inflow to your savings account, Vanessa, and this blue line. That's the money I sent Mom and Dad for medical bills. I looked up. My mother dropped the tray. The crash of ceramic shattering on the hardwood floor was deafening. Claire, Serenity gasped, what are you doing? I'm showing you the math, Mom, I said, my voice rising just enough to cut through the noise. See this transfer, November 12th. I sent $400 for a specialist. It went to Vanessa. Vanessa bought a dress. I turned the page. August 4th, $800 for Dad's dental work. It went to Ryan. Ryan paid for a car detail. Vanessa stood up, her face flushing red. You hacked my bank account. That's illegal. I'm calling the police. You gave me the password, I said calmly. Remember the verification portal? You authorized it. It's all legal, and it's all here. You petty little bitch, Vanessa hissed. So what? So Mom and Dad helped us. That's what family does. They decide where the money goes, not you. They solicited funds under false pretenses, I said. That's called fraud, Vanessa. Wire fraud specifically. Oh, stop it. My mother wailed, rushing over to pick up the broken appetizers, trying to regain control of the scene. It's not fraud, we needed to help your sister. She's struggling. You have so much, Claire, why are you so greedy? Greedy, I stood up. I drove a 10-year-old car so you could have heart surgery, Dad. I shouted toward the garage door, knowing he was listening. The door opened. My father stood there, holding a folding chair. He looked smaller than I remembered. He looked guilty. It wasn't like that, he mumbled. It was exactly like that, I said. You lied about dying to buy her purses. It's not a purse. Vanessa screamed. It's an investment. I'm an influencer. I need to look the part. You're a thief, I corrected her. And you, Ryan, do you want to talk about the 3 lawsuits for non-payment? Ryan's face went white. How did you? Public record, I said. If I sign this mortgage, the bank will sue me when you default. And you will default, because you're being sued by 3 other people right now. Vanessa turned on Ryan. What lawsuits? Nothing, Ryan stammered. Just business disputes. She's twisting everything. I'm twisting nothing, I said. I'm untwisting it. I'm straightening it out. Get out, Vanessa seethed. Get out of my house. It's not your house, I said. It's Mom and Dad's house. The one I paid to fix the roof on, remember, the $5,000. I don't care. She screamed, grabbing the mortgage papers and throwing them at me. They fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. You're ruining everything. You're jealous because I'm happy and you're alone. You're just a miserable, lonely spinster. And you, I said, looking her dead in the eye, are a 29-year-old child. The air in the room was toxic. My mother was sobbing on the floor, picking up cheese cubes. My father was staring at his shoes. Vanessa was panting, her chest heaving with rage. Ryan looked like he was calculating the distance to the nearest exit. "We don't need her," Ryan said suddenly, trying to pivot. He put an arm around Vanessa. "Baby, we don't need her. We'll find another way. My crypto portfolio is about to pop off. We can get a hard money loan." "A hard money loan?" I laughed. "At 12% interest, with no collateral, good luck." "You think you're so smart," Vanessa spat, "but you don't know everything. Mom and Dad signed a promissory note. They're giving us the rest of the down payment from their retirement account." I froze. "What?" I looked at my father. "Dad, tell me you didn't." He didn't answer. "Mom," I looked at Serenity. She sniffled, standing up. We had to, Claire. The bank needed more cash reserves. We cashed out the IRA." "The IRA?" My voice shook. "That's all you have, that's your entire life savings. You paid the penalty on that." "It's for the family," Serenity cried. "It's an investment in the house. When they sell it later, they'll pay us back." "They will never pay you back," I screamed. "Look at the binder, Mom. Look at tab 3. Ryan is being sued for fraud. He scammed people with a crypto scheme. He's going to take that money and lose it." "Don't listen to her," Ryan shouted, stepping forward aggressively. "She's lying. She's just trying to sabotage us because she's jealous." "Show them the phone, Ryan," I challenged. "Show them your brokerage account right now." "I don't have to show you anything." "Then I'll show them," I said. I flipped to the back of the binder. "I ran a credit check on you, Ryan. Do you know your score is 420? "That's a lie." "It's right here." I held up the page. "Delinquent on a car loan, delinquent on 2 credit cards, judgments against you in small claims court." My father finally looked up. He walked over to the table and looked at the page. He put on his reading glasses. "Joseph, don't look at it," Serenity pleaded. "She forged it. She's trying to hurt us." "It has the court seal, Mom," I said gently. "I can't forge a court seal." Dad stared at the paper. His hand trembled. "Ryan," Dad said slowly, "is this true? Did you lose that money?" "It was a bad market," Ryan defended. "Everyone lost money. It wasn't my fault." "And the car payment?" Dad asked. "The one we gave you money for last month. It says here you're 3 months behind." "I used it for marketing," Ryan stammered. "For the business." "He spent it on online gambling," I said. "Page 45. DraftKings, $700 on a Tuesday." The room went silent again. This time, the silence wasn't heavy, it was hollow. It was the sound of a reality collapsing. Vanessa looked at Ryan. "You told me you paid the car off." I was going to," Ryan said. "Once the house closed, I was going to refi the car and pay it off." "With what money?" I asked. "With the mortgage money." "Shut up," Ryan yelled at me. "Just shut up." "He's been lying to you, Vanessa," I said, my voice softer now. "He's been using Mom and Dad's money, my money, to gamble. He's not building a future, he's digging a hole." Vanessa looked at the binder. She looked at Ryan. She looked at the mortgage papers on the floor. "Is it true?" she whispered to him. "Baby, look, it's complicated," Ryan started, his hands up in a placating gesture. "You don't understand high finance." "I understand gambling." She screamed. She shoved him, hard. "You lost the money Dad gave us." "I didn't lose it, I invested it." "In DraftKings," she shrieked. "Okay, look," Ryan said, backing away. "If everyone is going to be hostile, I'm leaving. I don't need this negativity." "You're not leaving," my father said. His voice was different. The frailty was gone, replaced by a deep, rumbling anger I hadn't heard in 20 years. "You have my money." "It's gone, Joe," Ryan shrugged, a cruel smirk appearing on his face. "Investments carry risk. Read the fine print." "It wasn't an investment," Dad roared. "It was a gift for my daughter's house." "Well, now it's tuition," Ryan sneered. "Consider it a lesson in diversification." He turned to the door. "If you walk out that door," I said calmly, "I call the police. I have the wire transfer records. I have the gambling logs. And I have the emails where you and Vanessa discussed hiding the money from me. That makes it conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And unlike your little civil suits, that's a felony." Ryan stopped. His hand hovered over the doorknob. "You wouldn't," he said, turning back. "You'd put your own sister in jail." I looked at Vanessa. She was pale, shaking, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Try me," I said. The air in the room was electric, charged with the ozone smell of burned bridges. Ryan's hand was still on the doorknob, his knuckles white. Vanessa was slumped on the sofa, clutching a pillow as if it could shield her from the truth I had just laid bare. My parents stood frozen, a tableau of shattered denial. "Sit down, Ryan," I said, my voice low and devoid of compromise. "Or I make the call." He hesitated, his eyes darting between me and the door. Then, with a scowl that could curdle milk, he let go of the handle and slouched back to the fireplace, crossing his arms defensively. "This is entrapment," he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. "It's an audit," I corrected, "and you failed." I turned to my parents. They looked older now, stripped of the delusions they had clung to for years. My father, the man who had once seemed so formidable, now looked like a ghost in his own living room. "Dad," I said, softening my tone slightly but keeping my gaze firm. "You cashed out your IRA. How much?" He swallowed hard, unable to meet my eyes. 42,000. "And where is it?" "It's in the joint account," he whispered. "We were going to transfer it to the title company on Monday." "Good," I said, relief washing over me. It wasn't gone yet. "Transfer it back right now." I can't just." "Yes, you can," I said, pulling out my laptop and setting it on the coffee table. "Log in." "Claire, please," my mother wept. "This is Vanessa's future. We promised her." "You promised her a lie, Mom." I snapped, losing my patience. "You promised her a house she can't afford with a man who is stealing from you. Look at him." I pointed at Ryan. "He's not a fiancé. He's a liability. He's been gambling with your retirement." I was going to win it back. Ryan shouted, stepping forward. "One big parlerie and we would have been set. You don't understand leverage." "I understand addiction," I said coldly, "and I understand theft." Vanessa suddenly stood up. She walked over to the coffee table and picked up the binder. Her hands were shaking violently as she flipped through the pages. She stopped on the page detailing the investment losses. "Ryan," she said, her voice trembling, "is this true? Did you lose the 5,000 Dad gave us for the earnest money?" "Babe, it was a sure thing," Ryan pleaded, his charm now desperate and thin. "The odds were insane. I was doing it for us. Imagine a honeymoon in Bali." "You lost the earnest money," Vanessa whispered, but the realtor said the check cleared." "I wrote a check from my account," Ryan admitted, looking down. "It's going to bounce on Tuesday if I don't get the transfer." The silence that followed was absolute. Vanessa stared at him. For the first time in her life, the golden child wasn't being protected. The reality of her situation, that she was engaged to a con artist who was actively defrauding her parents, finally pierced the bubble of entitlement she had lived in. She looked at me. Her eyes were red, wet, and filled with a mixture of shame and fury. "He lied to me," she said, her voice breaking. "He told me he was a day trader." "He's a gambler, Ness," I said gently. "And he's been using you to get to Mom and Dad's money, and my money." Vanessa turned back to Ryan, her face hardened. The realization seemed to ignite something in her, a spark of the fierce protectiveness she usually reserved for herself. "Get out," she said. "What?" Ryan blinked. "Get out of my parents' house," she said, louder this time, "and give me the ring back." "Babes, come on. It's probably fake anyway." She screamed, tearing the ring off her finger and throwing it at him. It bounced off his chest and clattered onto the hardwood floor with a hollow tink. "Get out." Ryan looked around the room. He saw my father standing tall again, fists clenched. He saw my mother, pale but resolute. And he saw me holding a phone with 911 pre-dialed. "Fine," he sneered, bending down to pick up the ring. "You're all crazy anyway. Good luck paying for this dump without me." He stormed out, slamming the front door so hard the wreath fell off. We stood in the silence of the aftermath. The engine of his BMW roared to life outside and peeled away. My father sank into the armchair, burying his face in his hands. My mother sat beside him, weeping silently. Vanessa stood in the middle of the room, looking at the empty space where her future was supposed to be. Then, she looked at me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. It was the first time she had ever said those words to me. The next hour was a blur of administrative triage. I sat with my father at the computer and walked him through the process of transferring the IRA funds back into a secure account. We called the bank to flag the pending check Ryan had written as fraudulent. We changed passwords. We locked down credit reports. By the time we finished, it was dark outside. The Christmas tree lights were the only illumination in the living room, casting long, soft shadows. "I can't believe he did that," Mom said, sipping a cup of tea I had made her. "He seemed so ambitious." "He was ambitious," I said, closing my laptop, "just not in the way you thought." "And us," Dad said quietly, looking at me. We haven't been fair to you, Claire." I looked at them. They looked old and tired. The anger I had carried for so long, the burning resentment of being the useful one, felt different now. It wasn't gone, but the sharp edge had dulled. They weren't villains. They were just foolish, desperate people who loved their daughter too much and didn't know how to say no. "No," I said honestly. "You haven't. You used me. You lied to me about your health to get money for luxuries. That hurts more than the money, Dad." "I know," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was ashamed. We wanted to help Vanessa, but we didn't have it. And you were doing so well. We thought you wouldn't miss it." "I missed the trust," I said. "I missed feeling like your daughter instead of your bank." Vanessa was sitting on the floor, sorting through the binder. She was reading every email, every transaction. She looked up, her face streaked with tears. "I didn't know about the medical lies," she said. "I swear, Claire, I thought you just gave it to them. I didn't know they told you Dad was dying." I looked at her. I believed her. She was entitled, yes, but she wasn't cruel in that specific way. She was just a beneficiary of their deception. "It's over now," I said. "The tap is turned off, for everyone." "I know," Vanessa said. She closed the binder. I need to get a job, a real one." "Yes," I said, "you do." "And I'm not buying the house," she added. "Obviously." "Probably for the best," I said. The room fell silent again, but this time it was a peaceful silence. The tension of the secrets was gone. The truth was out, ugly and raw, but clean. "So," Mom said tentatively, "does this mean you're staying for dinner?" I looked at the clock. It was Christmas Eve. I had nowhere else to be. And despite everything, looking at these flawed, broken people, I realized that leaving them alone tonight would be a punishment I didn't want to inflict. "I'll stay," I said, "but I'm not cooking." A small, nervous laugh rippled through the room. Over the next few months, things changed. Slowly, painfully. Ryan was arrested 3 weeks later in Florida for trying to use a stolen credit card. The lawsuits caught up to him, and last I heard, he was facing 5 years for wire fraud. Vanessa moved back in with Mom and Dad, but the dynamic shifted. Without Ryan's influence and with the reality check of the near disaster, she started working as a receptionist at a dental office. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest money. My parents and I started therapy. It was awkward at first. There was a lot of shouting, a lot of crying, but we started to rebuild. I set strict boundaries. No more money, not a cent. If they had a medical emergency, I would pay the provider directly after seeing the invoice. They agreed. They had no choice, but they also seemed relieved. The lie was exhausting to maintain. I went back to Chicago, back to my quiet office and my view of the skyline. But I wasn't hiding anymore. I had faced the ghosts of my past and won. On my birthday in March, I received a card in the mail. Inside was a check for $50. For dinner, the note said in my father's shaky handwriting, "It's not much, but it's ours. Love, Dad." I pinned the check to my bulletin board. It was worth more to me than the $85,000 I had lost. It was the first honest dollar they had given me in years.